What's the Lamar story, Trey? Is it something where this guy, the casual fan, sees the natural ability and what he's able to do? Is there some type of dirty secret out there about him that teams are shying away? Because you would think in any other circumstance that they'd be frothing at the mouth to get a shot at this guy. So what's up with the whole situation?
Well, that's, I think, what a lot of people want to know, right? I mean, he's 26 years old. He's a former MVP,
Hmm.
and he's a franchise quarterback on the open market. Just remember, it was less than a year ago, or right about a year ago, when all these teams that very quickly and publicly, we should point out when asked, they didn't just put that out there, they were asked by people, saying they're out of the Lamar Jackson sweepstakes, and they were sure as hell seemed like they were all in on Deshaun Watson, who is, by every measure, doesn't have the resume of Lamar Jackson, is not as young as Lamar Jackson, and oh, by the way, has 25 sexual assault lawsuits going against him. So I find it very fascinating that all these teams that couldn't have been more in on Deshaun Watson suddenly want no part of Lamar Jackson. And there are certainly valid reasons that you can. Well, he's been injured the last couple of years. Is his style of play going to be more conducive to injury? Are we concerned about that? And you can say that, but Patrick Mahomes rolled his ankle playing from the pocket in the AFC divisional game and somehow limped his way to a second straight Super Bowl. Joe Burrow runs a lot, and he tore his ACL in his rookie year, and he's come back and played fine. What I'm most curious about is how are the Ravens so confident that they knew this was going to be the market for Lamar Jackson, that they were willing to put the non-exclusive tag on it? Like, to me, that's the one question I want to know. How were the Ravens so adept in understanding what other teams would want about their quarterback before he was ever even put out there? That, I think, is a very interesting question.
Trey, how much does Lamar not having an agent weigh into this? Because you kind of you hear the numbers get filtering out, right? Like the Ravens want to give him 130 million, he wants 200 million. You never know what to believe. But if this guy had a real agent working for him, don't you think this could be done by now?
Yes, I completely agree, and that's a great point. And people will say, well, the Ravens got a deal done with Roquan Smith, and he doesn't have an agent, and he got a 5-year, $100 million deal, even though it's not bad, as we all know. These NFL contracts are basically about guaranteed money. But it's one thing to negotiate an inside linebacker's contract. It is completely different to negotiate a quarterback contract in a league where the quarterback is essentially everything, and half the league needs an upgrade. It absolutely is hurting Lamar Jackson. And, maybe we're learning from all these contracts that have been coming out recently. The Kyler Murray deal seems like a disaster. We all saw what the Deshaun Watson contract was and all the money that he got guaranteed. And I also find it very interesting, guys, that the first owner to say anything publicly about the Deshaun Watson contract about a year ago this time was Ravens owner Steve Bisciotti, who said he thought it was a terrible contract for the league. And, it's very interesting that was his opinion when he knew he had to negotiate with Lamar, and suddenly the market at the moment for Lamar is very quiet. Now, we got to say we are in the infancy of this whole thing. Okay, Lamar controls a lot of this because he can't be traded to a team, which is what would happen in this situation, until he signs the tender. Then, because the Ravens don't have his rights, and they have until July 17th or 15th, I think it is, to work out a long-term deal. Otherwise, he plays on the one-term tender or the one-year tender on the non-exclusive. But there's no incentive for Lamar to do any of that right now. I think we were all thought that there might be a flood of offers in early. I think there's going to be a little more due diligence about this because I do believe there's something to the idea of other teams not wanting to do the Ravens' work for them. Like, let's say they work out a great contract and it's all set and good to go, and the Ravens say, "Oh, that's what the market is. Okay, fine, we can match it. We'll pay you." A lot of people say, "Oh, just take the top 2 picks or the 2-1 picks that you get." Right? Well, there's about a 60% fail rate at quarterbacks taken in the first round. In fact, from 2015 to 2017, of the top 2 quarterbacks drafted, or 2018 rather, only one quarterback that was one of the top 2 quarterbacks drafted is still with the team that drafted him, and that's Patrick Mahomes. Everybody else has moved on, and Carson Wentz has moved on 5 times. Okay? So it's just not so easy to say, we'll just take the draft picks and find a franchise quarterback. They have one in Baltimore, and I find it really interesting that they let it get to this because they catered that offense to Lamar Jackson. Everything they did was built around how Lamar plays. And now you're just going to let that sort of go up in smoke? That's really weird.